The objective of this module is to discuss how we select premises on which to hold a course. There are a number of ways in which we can approach this section. We can either imagine a perfect venue and explain what makes it ideal, or we can use a specific venue to which we have access and would like to use in the future. Or it could be based on your existing club venue. We also need to consider indoor and outdoor venues. A course can be run at either, but if a chosen location has only outdoor facilities, then extra consideration needs to be given to weather, seasons, and shelter. The brief suggests that at the end of the training course, the trainees should be of a sufficient standard that they can be signed off as full members of the NFAS. This means that at some point there needs to be an outdoor element where they can learn safety, rules, and etiquette of field shooting. Factor this into your lesson plan. Have a pen and paper handy in order to write down your ideas when required. This section covers indoor venues that are already used by the public or other organizations and groups. First of all, pause the presentation and brainstorm your ideas on possible venues. Add notes about pros and cons for each type of venue listed. There are different ways to present your thoughts. A simple list will work fine, or you could put your ideas down on paper in a spider diagram. When you've completed your list, restart the presentation. Types of venue include existing public facilities such as schools, leisure centres, sports clubs, and town or village halls. These types of venue have the advantage of being easily made safe and are already user-friendly. There will be easy access ramps, fire extinguishers, telephone, toilets, heating, and sometimes refreshment and first aid facilities. Other organisations may be glad to share their events rooms. For instance, Scouts groups, schools, social clubs for the elderly may be glad to share their facilities, and they might even be open to reducing fees in return for occasional archery taster sessions. One consideration at such venues would be that equipment has to be cleared away at the end of the session and stored on site. You may have other requirements that are not offered by public buildings, and another type of building may have to be adapted. First of all, pause the presentation and list or brainstorm your ideas on possible venues. Add notes about pros and cons for each type of venue listed. When you've completed your list, restart the presentation. Unused farm buildings or commercial premises will have different advantages and disadvantages. Often, their larger floor spaces will allow shooting from a variety of distances. Butts and nets can be left permanently assembled. This avoids the chores of putting them away each time, and any damage caused by stray arrows is less of a problem. There may be kitchen facilities and secure storage available, or they may have to be constructed. Such premises are unlikely to be heated, access ramps may have to be installed, and toilet facilities may have to be provided. Courses will have to contain an element of outdoor tuition, but you might choose to hold the entire course outdoors. Pause the presentation and list your ideas on possible outdoor venues. Add notes about pros and cons for each type of venue. Give thought to terrain, safety, and public access. When you've completed your list, restart the presentation. Outdoor venues have to be chosen with particular care. For training courses, woods are not generally suitable. Trainee archers need flat ground on which to learn with clear all-round visibility. Public access is always a potential problem, and venues need to be free of public footpaths and other rights of way, both official and unofficial. Just because land's private does not mean that it is never used by the public. A safe overshoot behind the butts is vital, and it's important to know what lies behind the area on which the course is held. There might be a road or animals in a field, houses, any number of reasons why stray arrows could do damage. An ideal safety feature is an embankment or rising ground at one end of the venue, so that stray arrows are stopped and anyone that might get behind the butts can be easily seen. Facilities for comfort breaks and refreshments need careful consideration in outdoor settings. Is there a covered area for shelter and administration? Safety barriers with appropriate signage may have to be erected. Sports fields and local playing fields will often have these facilities close by, which may not be the case in more rural settings. On ground used for other sports or used by livestock, stray arrows must be found before you leave. Have you included a metal detector in your equipment list? Should a portaloo have to be ordered? Will trainee archers have to bring a packed lunch? What about shelter in bad weather? Is storage available? Can equipment be left on site, or will it have to be erected and taken down at each meeting? The time of year in which you intend to hold your courses need to be considered. Evening courses can only be held in summer, whereas weekend courses are less constrained by the seasons. You may need to consider noise levels. Traffic, railways, or even wind noise can make it difficult to communicate with the students. These are the final slides in this module, and they cover the field archery section of your course. This is the final brainstorming session in this section. Pause the presentation and list your ideas on trainees shooting in woodland for the first time and how you will manage them. When you've completed your list, restart the presentation. Bear in mind that the training that you will offer is planned so that your students reach a sufficient standard that they can be signed off at the end of the training. Arrangements will have to be made so that they can learn the etiquette and principles of field shooting, safety and scoring. With a little creativity, these can be taught on a training range, but trainee coaches may have access to a field course or area or woodland where they can offer a more realistic introduction to NFAS field archery. In terms of public access, overshoots, comfort facilities and general safety, the guidance is much the same for both outdoor ranges and woodlands. One additional factor will be the uneven terrain. Make sure your trainees have stout, waterproof footwear. They should have declared any health problems at their induction to the course, but check again that all of your students are physically fit enough to make the transition from flat ground to woodland. Pulling arrows is possibly the area in which an accident is most likely to happen. Students may slip on muddy ground in front of the butt and be injured by the sharp plastic knocks. Students must be advised about the hazards of wasp nests, badger setts, etc., even if they aren't a problem in your wooded area. If deer or foxes are common in the wood, a ribbon around the neck of such 3Ds may be a good idea. Another factor is the trees themselves. On a range, the probability of ricochets off the butts is low, but amongst trees it's very high. Make sure your club or course risk assessments reflect the reality of trainees shooting in woodland. If trainees have learned their stance and shooting technique on level ground, rough woodland terrain may require some adjustment. If your students have not yet shot more than 20 yards during their training, try to tailor your field course to shorter shots at first. You could shorten the peg distances or shoot from the blue peg at first. Plan how you will cope with groups of students. If your course has 10 students, how will you adequately supervise them on a field course? What's the optimum size of the group? Do you have enough help from other coaches or experienced archers to help manage more than one group? Finally, whichever option you choose, the cost of hiring that venue should be factored into your costings for the course. If you have any questions or queries on the content of the module, please contact the Coach Training Coordinator on coachtrainer@nfas.net.